So today you're going to hear from Steve Chmelar. Steve has had a long, distinguished career with Carroll Supply based out of Ottumwa. Steve has impacted a lot of story projects as well as a lot of projects in the industry, and I'm looking forward to hearing his story. Here you go, Steve Chmelar. All right, so talk to me about growing up. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Washington, Iowa in 1953 and lived on a family farm. My grandpa had a 1,000-acre farm, pretty nice land down in Washington, Iowa, west of town. And Dad and two of his brothers worked for Grandpa, and we had a small house that was part of the farm property.
Sure.
And we lived there and stayed in Washington until I was about 10 years old. Dad had ruptured some disc in his back due to some of the work that he had done, and the doctor said he needs to change professions. So we left Washington and moved to Ottumwa because there was a territory opened up for a feed product, Walnut Grove 4x4 feeds, that he was going to be the salesman for Wapello County. And we moved to Ottumwa over mid-break when I was in 5th grade. And so we were there until I think Christmas, and then the Christmas break moved to Ottumwa and started school in Ottumwa.
Sure. So feed, what was the feed for? Hogs?
Hogs and cattle.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so your grandpa had to hire some hands then to work the farm?
Probably just bought bigger machinery and more equipment, and he ended up just one son helping him, and they had hired hands that filled in, yeah. Sure.
Okay. So your family moved to Ottumwa. So where'd you go to school in Ottumwa then?
Eisenhower was the school district where we lived, and that happened to be on the north side of Ottumwa. And it's kind of surprising that where I live now bought property and built a house, and have been in that for 35 years. I live within about 6 blocks of where I first moved in Ottumwa. So,
darn. So my wife is from the Big O, so
yes.
I have a special affinity for Ottumwa.
Yes.
Yep. So then you graduated as an Ottumwa Bulldog?
Sure.
Is that right?
And 1971 was our graduating year, and high school was an absolute, all of my school experiences have been very positive over the years. And in high school, though, I fit right in, and I was a contributor. I guess part of my artistic flair, I was making banners for pep rallies and things of that sort. And,
sure.
And then in our senior year, our basketball team was pretty successful, and we went to the state tournament in the semifinals, and working up to the final game is when I had this idea to make the foam finger. And then it's a little bit of a misnomer, because what I built or what I made was not actually foam. It was hardware cloth, paper mache, but it was certainly the concept of the exaggerated #1 foam finger that you see today at sporting events all over. I made that back in the spring of 71.
So you weren't the point guard, you were the foam finger guy.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I wasn't a basketball player. I played football and, all conference tackle in football, but I wasn't a basketball player. It just didn't go in the hoop.
Sure. So how did you think of that, or what, do you have any memory of like, yeah, this would be fun, or this would be cool, or how did that happen?
Over the course of the basketball season, there were pictures in the Ottumwa Courier, people holding up their #1 finger.
Sure.
It's kind of a rallying point, and just the idea hit me that let's exaggerate that and make it larger. So got out the pliers and snips and started fashioning the shape of it, and my wife helped me. We were high school sweethearts. So my wife helped me put the paper mache around it. I painted it white and did the outline for the knuckles and fingernails and things, and gave it a little bit of dimension that way. And it was small enough that I could carry it in front of me and with me, and took it to the basketball events. And there are photos from several different newspapers in the area that certainly document me having that.
Yeah, so to be clear for everybody, because this is only audio, not video, it's the index finger. It's not the other finger.
Yes, correct.
And this clearly wouldn't fit the clear bag policy today at Wells Fargo. So you took it. There was a lot of media cover or photos that included that. So how does it get from there to a foam finger?
Well, after the high school season, basketball season, I stored it away. I mean, I put it in my closet or someplace, and really forgot about it for quite a long time. And then learned that there's a Spirit Industry, I think is the name of the guy's business, that he does foam products, and he claims that he didn't know about my product and my foam finger, or number one finger. So, supposedly he started out with 2 pieces of plywood to do that, and then foam came around. So I don't know if he claims he didn't see it, but I don't know if that's the truth or not. But,
sure.
I certainly am not the one that expanded it to the foam, and I certainly have not benefited financially from any profits along the way. I didn't have the foresight to patent that at the time, and it's just a fun thing to do.
Sure. Do you still have the paper mache version of it? Really?
I've got it in a tote in the basement at home. Well, the condition of it, 50 years later, it's the newspaper that was used for the paper mache is curled in a few places.
Sure.
But it's intact. And another thing, as a commemorative aspect of things, I had our basketball team sign it. So from the image that you would see in the newspaper where it was all white, it's got red marks a lot, signatures around it. And unfortunately, a couple of the guys that were on the team have passed, and it's sort of a keepsake.
Sure.
To remember all those people.
You made reference to your family moving from Washington to Ottumwa. So do you have siblings?
I do. I have 2 brothers, and one brother was exactly, to the day, born on my birthday, 2 years younger than I am, and then the second brother is 4 years younger than I am. So
are they still around Ottumwa?
No, the middle boy, Mark, he lives in Dubuque. He worked for John Deere as an engineer for his 42-and-a-half-year career, I believe, and then my youngest brother, Larry, lives in Sigourney, Iowa.
Oh.
My mom passed in 1990, and Dad is still with us. He lives in Washington, Iowa, in a retirement community up there.
Okay.
Halcyon House. So.
You made reference to your wife in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly she wasn't your wife then, but
Nope.
You married your high school sweetheart?
Yes. Yep. We started dating as juniors, and so been together ever since then. We married in 1973, so a couple of years after we graduated from high school.
Okay.
So we were young, both 19 at the time of our wedding.
That was it was not uncommon then, right?
That's right, yes. Yeah, people got married younger back then.
Yeah. So now, do you and your wife have kids of your own?
We have 3 kids, 3
Okay.
children, and our oldest daughter, Sarah, lives near Ottumwa, but within 15 miles of Ottumwa. She and her husband have an acreage south of town, halfway between Ottumwa and Bloomfield.
Yep.
And then youngest daughter, middle child, Jana, lives in Iowa City, and she's got 3 kids of her own. Sarah, our first, does not have any children, but then Jana has 3, and 2 girls and a boy. And then our son David lives in Denham Springs in Louisiana, and he has a daughter down there.
Oh, darn.
Yep.
So pretty close to home, except for Louisiana.
For David, yeah.
Yep. Huh. All right. So you graduate. You're a Bulldog. Then what do you do after graduating from Ottumwa High School?
Well, the Bulldog story affected what occurred afterward, post high school, and the reason I say that is through this basketball season and all the activity that I did, I let my senior math skills let that slide. I didn't test too well on some of the end of term classes, and I don't know, got a D or something like that in senior math, and my high school counselor saw that and said, you really probably shouldn't go into architecture if you don't have the math skills, but why not try landscape architecture? So I enrolled at Iowa State in landscape architecture, and that wasn't all that exciting at all. It's not. I ended up switching out of Iowa State University and going to Southwestern Community College. Part of that is because my relationship with the Carroll family in Ottumwa, Dick Carroll, who hired me back in '73. I'd worked for him for odd jobs and construction things for a couple of years, and he saw some potential in me, I guess, and said that if you get some training behind you, I'd have a position for you. And I went to Southwestern Community College after my Iowa State stint, and studied structural drafting for steel and concrete. And after I did that, a little over a year program, Dick hired me full-time in 1973. My official start date was January 1st of '73, and I got a 50-year anniversary coming up in just a few months. So,
wow,
it's been my only professional job ever. So,
yeah. So walk through that. What's the progression through Carroll Supply?
Yeah. Initially, I was in charge of the warehouse and making the horizontal rod system, forming system, which was 4x8 and 2x8 pieces of plywood with slots cut in them or routed in them. And those are erected, a form tie goes in, steel rod goes through the loop of the tie, and that's a form system. So that was a product that was designed and developed by Gates & Sons in Denver, Colorado. In the mid-'50s, Royce Carroll had been in Denver, Colorado on some business-related things and had seen this forming system in use and became interested enough that he and his brother Dick, they acquired the franchise, I guess you could say. They got the rights to sell the product in Iowa and the northern half of Illinois. And when I started with Carroll, Dick Carroll lived in Ottumwa, and then there was a branch office in Aurora, Illinois, and there were a couple of people that worked over there. But that was the size of the company back in the early days. And then I came on, so I was a hands-on warehouse guy in Ottumwa and made the forms. I got my CDL, and so I was able to drive a straight truck to deliver forms to the jobs, and did that for a year or so, and then Dick threw me out to start doing selling. And even though probably all of my business cards have something that relates to sales on them, I've never really considered myself a salesman. I look at applications, I come up with a design concept for form work or whatever material we're providing, and I present that to somebody. If they see a value in it, I guess I've sold something. But
sure.
I'm not the proverbial sell a refrigerator to an Eskimo type of guy.
Yeah, you're selling solutions as much as anything else. So concrete formwork has been a big part of where you've played for Carroll Supply, right?
Yes, almost the entire 50 years.
No refrigerators, just concrete formwork?
That's right, no refrigerators.
Okay.
And forming has changed tremendously over that 5 decades. And I know that I've knocked on the door many times at the old location of Story down near the power plant.
Yep.
Chuck Bass, a former employee of Story, back in the late 70s, I believe it was, early 80s, there was a box culvert project in Clinton, Iowa, where they were putting in a water treatment plant of some sort, wastewater, and there was a box culvert that was fairly deep in the ground and required overhead shoring to stabilize the overdig. I mean, they weren't able to do much of an overdig, so it was this box, and the EFCO forms couldn't be maneuvered around all this structural shoring. And one thing about the Gates forming systems are they're wood and they're fairly lightweight. And I presented a size of form that could be maneuvered within that shoring, and Chuck agreed to that, and we supplied forms for a job. So that was one application. There was another one right across the street from your offices and part of the power plant, and there was a need to gang form the outside because of the height of the wall and some details that were on the outside, like a haunch or a corbel, and things that were difficult to do on a repetitive nature in handset application. So we gang formed the outside, but with the Gates system, there are ways of hand setting the inside, even though you gang the outside, and had a good successful application in that regard too. So,
well, yeah, and there's more, right? So you invented another forming system for risers.
Yep. In Story had a job in Pella Christian High School, and Jim Sodders was superintendent on that job. He presented me with an application that the plans called for a shored slab, a sloping shored slab for the risers, but there were 2 walls that prevented shoring to be used and retrieved from an area. And because I had some experience about selling geofoam, I came up with a concept of using geofoam as a lightweight structural fill material that could be used where the slab was supposed to be shored. And we put that in, mounted some one-of-a-kind, first to be seen riser ties mounted to some plywood strips, and a form system grew out of that. And I was fortunate to be able to patent that a couple of years later. And so.
Yeah, I know we've used it a few times on projects. So what sort of life does that have today, or has that had since you developed that?
Well, it hasn't set the world on fire, but it absolutely is a good competitive riser forming system. And really, to my knowledge, there are about 3 in the country that have been around. 2 of them are most often used with foam, and they have a steel riser face that ties into the foam. My system is different than that. I use a plywood, an HDO plywood riser face, and then that's stripped away, and you have an actual concrete riser and tread, as opposed to a steel face with the tread.
Sure.
Which, from a finish point of view, is a lot of people like the concrete surface is better than a steel surface.
You're based in Ottumwa. What's been your territory, and how many miles have you put on in 50 years?
Well, back in the heyday when I was the only salesman in Iowa, it was not uncommon to log 60 or 70 or 80,000 miles a year driving all across the state. Part of that time I was actually, when they were without a salesman at the Aurora, Illinois office, I took the opportunity to sell jobs over there as well. So I'd go over to Illinois for a couple of days a week and then come back to Iowa. I've never tallied it up, but it's
a lot.
It's a lot, hundreds of thousands for sure.
So in the most recent future, have you continued to travel the state, or has Carroll grown enough and divided enough where you've got a smaller area to serve?
As far as my active sales duty, I'm not a regular salesman calling on guys on a daily basis. That's my job. Is requirements have transitioned to where I'm more of the idea, the concept guy. I feed AutoCAD drawings to the sales staff and wherever they might be, and then they pursue that and sell the jobs. So I'm more at my desk 10 hours a day as opposed to being behind the wheel of a pickup and driving around. Carroll as a company has grown from, like say, the 3 or so people in the beginning, over 300 now. Instead of one branch office and a home office, 2 locations. We're in the 30-plus locations around the country. So Carroll has done a tremendous job of, Steve Carroll, particularly, has done a tremendous job of growing the business and keeping it dynamic in that manner.
Still family owned?
Still family owned.
I'll be darned.
In 2015, started the discussion of setting up an ESOP. So about a third of the business, a third of the company is employee owned now.
Terrific.
Still family involvement otherwise though.
So you've been involved in lots and lots of projects in your career, many with Story, a couple of which you've mentioned. If you had a highlight reel of a couple that you drive by or you see on TV or you tell people about, what do you tell them about?
Well, the first couple of jobs in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, happened to be with Knudsen Construction, and there was a father and son team, that superintendent and lead foreman, that worked very well with them, and an 18-story building in Cedar Rapids right on the river was one of my first commercial experience. And then a few years later, Stouffer's 5-season hotel, although it's not Stouffer's anymore, it was like a 15-story concrete structure, and it was totally concrete structure, shear walls inside, end walls.
Is that the DoubleTree now?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
And we used number 5 anchor lock system on that because there was at the time, exposed tie holes were a design trend, and we gave a 24-inch on center pattern with our tie hole exposure, and that worked out real well with the liner that they chose, and man, that was a really nice job.
Did Knudsen do that one too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And probably the next major job that I really enjoyed being a part of was about a 4,000 lineal foot, 3/4 of a mile box culvert job in Cedar Rapids. That really challenging project, but because it, in the scope of that 4,000 feet, the intake end of it was smaller, narrower, and shorter. But then they get so far into it, and they jumped it wider and
Sure.
jumped it taller. So we had to design into the formwork the ability to make those changes. But I did the rolling shoring inside of that, and totally a design that I was hands-on in putting together, and it was successful. Jump forward a few years, Papa John Sculpture Park in Des Moines.
Sure.
Very, very challenging berm walls on that job. They were somewhat parabolic in shape. I guess think of the Nike swoosh as something.
It's back to your landscape architecture days.
Yes, thank you.
Uh-huh.
That's how I got that one.
Uh-huh.
The parabolic shape rising from ground level on the ends to a high point in the middle of that.
Sure.
And there were 3 of these berm walls to do, and 2 of them were similar. The other one was completely different length, different height, the whole thing. Had a challenge there. It was tilted back 15 degrees from plumb, so very customized form. And we gang formed the outside of it, the tilt back side, and the face side though was handset. And Gates and Sons came through with flying colors on that formwork design.
I'll have to pay attention to that now. I mean, I've seen those walls, but I've not understood the complexity in making them.
Yeah, and they were sandblasted after the fact, and it's a simple little thing. You wouldn't even give it a second thought otherwise, except that we knew the challenge of making that. You couldn't patch the tie holes without them showing up after sandblasting because they wouldn't have the right aggregate in there and this was a colored concrete. It had to match, and Gates makes tie hole plugs for their normal run-of-the-mill jobs. I bought the trays that make those tie hole plugs, and we actually pulled off some of the cream and the aggregate from every job placement, every portion of that, and made our own plugs that could be pushed in and set in an adhesive, so that when the sandblasting occurred, it almost seamless. You really can't tell that it was in there at all. So
your work is all over.
It is.
Yeah, you have the opportunity by what you do to have a hand in almost every project.
The hope is that the sales staff, as they go along, gain some of the experience that I have, but I'm consulting on many projects.
Sure.
Yeah. Another big job that we had was the amphitheater seating and stairs. It's called the Interchange Project. It was just to the north of Target Field, Minneapolis. There's a light rail system that comes in, and there's a transfer point at Target Field, and 42 riser project, and it's semicircular, so it's very large. And the ties were, rather than just being carbon steel that could have the possibility of rusting, they opted for stainless steel ties. And the riser solution system normally uses a camlock tie end that break back and you have a tie hole to patch. I came up with a method of doing, because they needed to move the riser faces off, patch the holes, and do that all while the concrete was green. So I came up with a coupling nut design where the tie that's buried in the concrete has a coupling nut on it, and then we attach a bolt through the formwork, the riser form, into that coupling nut. You can use an impact driver and pull those bolts out.
Sure.
And tap the face, and it comes off, and then now you have a 5/16 hole to fill that they can cream in with their float. And
cool. Well, clearly you are making impact on people today, not just in your company, but in the industry. As you look back on your career, who were some of the people that made an impression upon you?
Well, 2 come to mind immediately, and that's Dick Carroll. Dick and I were very close over the years. He was a great mentor. Back when before working full-time for Carroll Distributing, I was doing handiwork for him. He had put an addition on his house, and I was helping him with finish work. And the point of our discussion came that we were talking about the future, and he said, "Steve, I hope that at some point we get beyond me teaching you things, but you can teach me things." And he was that kind of a fella. I mean, he understood life very well.
Sure.
And it was a great teacher for me, and we remained friends entire life. So then Gordon Gates in Denver, Colorado at Gates and Sons. Gordon and I were, think I ever could be at the same level as he, but we were able to communicate about thinking of outside the box, thinking of new ways to approach things and push the envelope, I guess. So Gordon Gates was a great friend too.
So you mentioned January 1st will be your 50th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
So is that the day that you retire, or what are retirement plans, and then what does it look like once you retire?
Yeah, I intend to retire from full time being at the desk on December 31st. So that'll complete that stage of things. I know that regional sales manager and some of the others want me to be available. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but
Sure.
beyond December 31st, I'll be on for an extended period of time. I'm 69 this October, so I'll be 70. That's the maximum age that you're allowed to draw for Social Security. So I'll make sure that I'm contributing until then, and then I'll see what happens after that.
The rest of the retirees on the planet, or at least in the United States, thank you for that, contributing to Social Security.
Yes.
So what does that look like? Travel to Mexico, drive a NASCAR? What are you going to do?
Short-term plan is that I've been acquiring equipment to do blacksmithing, and working on blacksmithing jobs, projects. I've got a number of people that have, once they found out that I'm doing this, that would like to have this unique little thing made or that, and working on a log rack, fireplace log rack for someone right now. So
you've got a shop to be able to do this in?
A small shop.
Yeah, I bet it's not small.
No, it's small. In fact, I've found out that forge that I had, an LP gas forge that I had, was putting out way too much for the space, too much carbon monoxide. And when I had some blood work done a few months ago, they said, "Are you in a shop, working in a shop somewhere where there's engines going, or what's going on?" And you have tests show that you have been around carbon monoxide. And so I ordered a new forge that's arrived, made in Spain, and it has a fraction of the carbon monoxide under testing applications. It puts out far less carbon monoxide than prior forge that I was using, and so I'm hoping that I won't kill myself.
Different forge or bigger shop, either one.
Yeah,
different. We'll start with a different forge.
And have the opportunity. My wife, she retired last spring, so we've got the opportunity to travel some more and get down to Louisiana more often and see our granddaughter there and son. So
something tells me you've got one or two more patents left in you.
Well, that could be.
My impression of people like you is it just doesn't turn off. Oh. It just stays on. It just might apply to different things.
My wife comments, others around me comment. When I go someplace, I'm not just there. I'm looking at how something was built. I was questioning why they did an overhang like they did, and it's nonstop.
Yep.
It's always on. And although I don't mind it, other people laugh at it some, I guess, or comment on it. But I hope I never lose that interest in how things are done.
Sure. Well, to that point, you've seen a lot of game film. You've seen a lot of people in this industry. You've clearly grown up in it from your time in a short time at Iowa State, then at Southwestern Community College. You've seen a lot of people come through. For young people today, what would you suggest? What advice would you have for them about their future and a future in this industry?
To a degree, when you jump into this, you're committing to something already. So after you do that, as I said a moment ago, observe. Keep your eyes open and just take in all that you can, learn all that you can about the goal that you have. Whatever job task or function that you're in, learn it thoroughly, know your products and service. I mean, Story is successful for the reasons, you guys are GCs, you're design build, construction management. You've got 3 different paths there that you go to be successful at the work you do. Take it all in to be successful, apply yourself, develop your skills, and become good at what you do, be proficient. That's important. I also think that it's very reasonable to expect to help other people become better. I don't just let people, if I'm around someone and they're squandering away things or not accomplishing what they need, I try to look and see what can I suggest, what would be helpful to them to get them over the hump. So, be a mentor in that way and
Sure.
be helpful. I also have found over the years it's great to learn about things that are outside your wheelhouse. There are disciplines beyond construction that you can learn things and then apply back to what you are doing. I think that happens all the time.
Agreed.
And with the internet these days and iPads and all, I would suggest that try to avoid being distracted by things that are not important, beneficial, or useful. You can get bad habits established that keep you away from doing what is important. And
Yeah.
I think that needs to be on guard all the time.
Yeah, agreed. It's tempting to have your face in your phone a lot.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that when you're a blacksmith. There are consequences.
You got earmuffs on and face mask on, and you're dedicated to that task. So and you're making something.
So is there anything we didn't cover today that you think of in your career that would be of benefit for the Iowa construction industry to know?
I would say we covered most of it.
Excellent. This is great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. There you have it, directly from Steve. What an amazing story of invention and innovation. I think when I think of Steve, based on what he shared with us today, I think of curiosity about not just what he's doing, but about what everybody else is doing as well. And what a gentleman. So he always knew he had a part to play. He didn't need to play every part. And I think that's what endeared a lot of people at Story and really in the industry, I think, to like to do business with Steve when the time was right. So thanks, Steve, and wish you well.